Before we begin tonight's story, make sure you turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and listen carefully. And if this story keeps you awake, leave a like, comment what you would have done, and subscribe for more true-style horror stories. The winter of 2018 was one of the coldest that the small town of Ashbury, Pennsylvania had seen in decades. Snow covered every rooftop, every fence, and every forgotten corner of the town. After sunset, the streets became so quiet that even the passing of a truck on the highway sounded like thunder rolling over the hills. For 28-year-old Daniel Harper, however, silence had become unbearable. 3 months earlier, his father had died unexpectedly from a heart attack. The loss hit Daniel harder than he ever imagined. Unable to afford his apartment in Pittsburgh, and desperate for a fresh start, he packed everything he owned and moved into his late father's farmhouse on Blackwood Road. The house sat alone at the end of a long gravel driveway, surrounded by dense woods and frozen fields. Locals often joked that Blackwood Road was cursed. Daniel never believed those stories, at least, not at first. The farmhouse itself was more than 100 years old. The wooden floors creaked constantly, and the walls groaned whenever the wind blew through the valley. Still, Daniel found comfort there. It reminded him of childhood summers spent fishing with his father, helping him repair fences, and eating canned soup on the porch while storms passed over the fields. For the first 2 weeks, everything was normal. He unpacked boxes, cleaned dusty rooms, fixed a broken pipe under the kitchen sink, and slowly convinced himself that the house could become home again. Then the phone calls began. It happened on a Thursday night. Daniel was sitting in the living room, half watching an old movie, when his cell phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Hello. There was only silence. Not ordinary silence. There was something under it. A faint crackling sound, almost like an old radio station struggling to find a signal. Daniel said hello again. No one responded. Then the line disconnected. He shrugged it off. Spam calls happened all the time. The next night, the same number called again. This time, the crackling was louder. Daniel listened carefully. Somewhere beneath the static, he thought he heard breathing. Slow. Heavy. Like someone standing inches away from the receiver. Who is this? He asked. No answer. Then the call ended. By Sunday, the number had called 6 times. Each call lasted longer than the previous one. And every time, the breathing became clearer. Monday evening brought the first voice. Daniel nearly dropped his phone when he heard it. A man's voice. Weak. Distorted. As though speaking through layers of water. Help me. Daniel froze. What? The voice repeated itself. Help me. Then silence. He immediately tried calling the number back. An automated message informed him that the number did not exist. That made no sense. He checked online. Nothing. No records. No listings. Just a dead number. For several hours, Daniel convinced himself it was a prank. Someone from town trying to scare the newcomer. That explanation lasted until Tuesday night. At exactly 2:17 in the morning, the house woke him. A loud knocking sound echoed through the hallway. 3 knocks. A pause. Then 3 more. Daniel sat upright in bed. His room was dark except for moonlight shining through the curtains. The knocking came again. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Someone was inside the house. Daniel grabbed a flashlight and stepped into the hallway. The noise stopped immediately. Every room was empty. Every door was locked. Nothing appeared out of place. Yet he could not shake the feeling that someone had been standing there moments earlier. Watching. Waiting. The next morning, he discovered Muddy footprints leading across the kitchen floor. The footprints ended abruptly in front of the basement door. There were no footprints leading away. Only toward it. Daniel stared at them for several minutes. His father rarely used the basement. In fact, Daniel could barely remember ever going down there as a child. The door was locked with an old brass padlock. His father had always said the foundation was unstable. For years, Daniel accepted that explanation. Now he was not sure. The mysterious calls continued throughout the week. Each night brought new words, short phrases, fragments, desperate whispers. Below. Cold. Can't leave. Daniel began recording every call. He spent hours listening to the audio files, searching for clues. On Friday night, he finally heard something unmistakable. A name, Thomas Reed. Daniel searched the name online. Within seconds, old newspaper articles appeared. One headline immediately caught his attention. Missing local man, 1987. Thomas Reed, age 34, vanished while driving home along Blackwood Road during a snowstorm. Despite extensive searches, neither Reed nor his vehicle were ever found. Authorities eventually presumed him dead. Daniel stared at the screen. Thomas Reed had disappeared less than 2 miles from the farmhouse. That could not be a coincidence, could it? The next afternoon, Daniel drove to the Ashbury Public Library. An elderly librarian named Margaret helped him locate archived newspapers. For nearly 3 hours, Daniel read article after article. What he discovered disturbed him. Thomas Reed was not the only person who vanished near Blackwood Road. There were others. 5 in total. Different years. Different circumstances. But all of them disappeared. Within 3 miles of the farmhouse. Margaret noticed his concern. Researching the old road, she asked. Daniel nodded. She hesitated. My husband used to tell stories about that area. What kind of stories? People hearing voices in the woods. Daniel tried to laugh. What voices? Lost people, she said. And then she looked down at the papers in his hands. Some things are better left alone. That night, a blizzard rolled into Ashbury. Wind screamed across the fields. Snow hammered against the windows. Around midnight, Daniel's phone rang. Again. Unknown number. He answered immediately. The voice sounded stronger than ever. More human. More desperate. Daniel. His blood turned cold. The caller knew his name. Who are you? The reply came. Instantly. Basement. The line filled with static. Then another sentence emerged. He is still here. The call ended. At that exact moment, a tremendous crash echoed from downstairs. Daniel jumped from his chair. The kitchen was empty. But the basement door stood open. The brass padlock lay shattered on the floor. A freezing gust of air drifted upward from the darkness below. Daniel stared into the black opening. Something moved deep beneath the house. Not quickly. Not aggressively. Slowly. Like someone climbing the stairs. One step at a time. Then he heard it. A voice from the darkness. A voice that sounded exactly like his dead father. Daniel. He almost answered. The word was already forming in his throat when his phone vibrated in his hand. A text message appeared from unknown number. Do not speak to him. Daniel stumbled backward. The voice from the basement came. Again. Daniel, please. It sounded tired, sad, familiar. Every part of him wanted to believe it was his father. But something about the way the voice dragged his name made his skin crawl. He backed into the living room and grabbed the baseball bat near the fireplace. The voice changed, just slightly. It became impatient. Come downstairs. Daniel whispered, Dad. The entire house went silent. Then every light went out. For several seconds, he could hear only the blizzard outside and his own breathing. Then a sound came from the kitchen. Wet footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Crossing the floor. Daniel. raised the bat with shaking hands. The beam of his flashlight flickered to life. For 1 second, he saw a figure standing at the basement door. It was shaped like a man, but too tall, too thin, and bent at the shoulders as if its spine had been broken and reset wrong. Its face was hidden in shadow. Then the flashlight died. Daniel ran. He slammed the front door open and stumbled into the snow barefoot. The cold bit into his feet as he sprinted down the driveway toward his truck. Behind him, from inside the house, his father's voice screamed his name. But beneath it were other voices. A woman crying, a man begging, someone laughing softly. All of them calling from the dark. Daniel reached the truck and fumbled with the keys. The engine coughed but did not start. He tried again. Nothing. Through the windshield, he saw the farmhouse. Every window was black. Except one. The upstairs bedroom window glowed with pale blue light. A figure stood behind the glass. It raised one hand. Daniel recognized the gesture immediately. It was the way his father used to wave goodbye from the porch. Then the phone rang. Unknown number. Daniel answered without thinking. Thomas Reed's voice came through, clearer than before. Listen to me. It uses the dead. It wears their voices. Your father trapped it for a while. Now he is gone. It wants you to open the place beneath the house. Daniel cried out, what place? The root cellar, Thomas said. Behind the basement wall. Don't let it out. The line went dead. The truck finally started. Daniel threw it into reverse, backed into a snowbank, then forced it down the driveway toward the road. He did not stop until he reached the town diner, where 2 police officers were drinking coffee. He told them everything. The calls. The footprints. The broken basement lock. The thing in the house. They looked at him the way people look at someone who has not slept in days. Still, they followed him back to the farmhouse. By then the storm had weakened. The basement door was closed. The padlock was back in place. No muddy footprints marked the kitchen floor. No broken wood. No shattered metal. Nothing. The officers checked every room and found no one. One of them suggested grief could do strange things to the mind. Daniel wanted to argue, but he knew how he sounded. Before leaving, the older officer pulled him aside. My uncle worked a disappearance out here back in the 80s, he said quietly. He never liked this road. If I were you, I would not stay here alone. Daniel spent that night at a motel in town. He barely slept. At 4 in the morning, he woke to his phone ringing on the nightstand. Unknown number. He let it ring until it stopped. Then a voicemail appeared. Against his better judgment, he played it. At first, there was static. Then his father's voice whispered. You left me here. Daniel threw the phone across the room. The next morning, he returned to the farmhouse with tools, rope, batteries, and a cheap security camera from the hardware store. He did not know what he planned to do. Maybe he wanted proof. Maybe he wanted answers. Maybe he wanted to know whether his father had really known about the thing beneath the house. In the basement, the air was colder than it should have been. His flashlight showed stone walls, old shelves, rusted paint cans, and a workbench covered in dust. At the far end of the room was a section of brick that looked newer than the rest. Daniel touched it. The mortar crumbled beneath his fingers. Behind him, something whispered his name. He turned. Nothing. He set up the camera facing the wall and started recording. Then he took a hammer and struck the bricks. The sound echoed through the Basement like a gunshot. He hit again. And again. After 20 minutes, several bricks broke loose. A smell seeped through the gap. Damp earth. Rotten wood. And something sweet and foul. Underneath. Daniel pulled away more bricks until he could see a narrow passage. Behind the wall. A root cellar. Old wooden steps descended into darkness. On the first step lay a rusted license plate. Pennsylvania. 1987. Thomas Reed's car. Daniel's legs went weak. He should have stopped. He should have called the police. Instead, he climbed down. The passage opened into a chamber under the house. Roots hung from the ceiling like black veins. The dirt walls were covered with scratches. Some were words. Some were names. Thomas, Eleanor, Michael, Janet, Robert, and one fresh name carved into the dirt. Daniel. His flashlight shook. At the center of the chamber stood an old iron door built into the ground. It looked like a hatch, sealed with chains. Around it were dozens of small cassette recorders, broken phones, and answering machines, all covered in dust. Some were so old Daniel did not recognize them. Others looked recent. Then, all at once, they turned on. Every device in the room came alive with static. Voices poured from them. "Help me. Let me out. Daniel. Son. Please. We are cold. It hurts. Don't leave us here." Daniel dropped the hammer. The iron hatch rattled. Something beneath it pushed upward. Once, twice. The chain strained. His father's voice came from an old tape recorder beside his foot. "Danny, listen to me." This time, the voice was different. Not perfect. Not smooth. Broken. Human. Daniel picked up the recorder. "Dad," the voice trembled. "I kept it closed. I heard it for years. It learned voices from the dead, from the missing, from anyone who got too close. I tried to warn people. Away. I tried to keep you away. But after I died, the seal weakened." Daniel was crying now. "What is it?" his father's voice answered. "Something hungry." The hatch slammed upward, bending. One of the chains. A long, gray finger pushed through the gap. Then another. Daniel stumbled backward. His father's voice screamed, "Run!" Daniel grabbed the hammer and struck the recorder, silencing it. Then he climbed the stairs as fast as he could. Behind him, the chamber erupted. With voices. Not pleading anymore. Laughing. Screaming. Mocking him in. The voices of the dead. He reached the basement and shoved the broken bricks back into the hole, but it was useless. The wall shook from the other side. Dust fell from the ceiling. Upstairs, every phone in the house began to ring. Daniel ran to the garage, found 2 cans of gasoline, and carried them to the basement stairs. His hands moved before his mind could stop them. He poured gasoline across the floor, over the broken wall, down the steps, and along the old shelves. The ringing grew louder. The voices became his mother, his teachers, old friends, people he had not heard in years. Then came his father's voice. One last time. Not from a phone. Not from the basement. From directly beside him. "It is okay, Danny. Let it burn." Daniel struck a match. The fire climbed. The gasoline in a bright orange wave. He ran from the house as smoke filled the kitchen. Behind him, something screamed from beneath the floor. The scream was not human. It shook the windows. It shook the trees. It shook the snow from the roof. Daniel reached the driveway and turned back. The farmhouse burned against the white winter fields. In the upstairs bedroom window, he saw his father standing in the flames. Not trapped. Not afraid. Just watching. Then, for the first time since the funeral, Daniel saw him smile. By sunrise, the farmhouse was gone. The fire department called it an electrical accident. The police found no bodies. No hidden chamber. No iron hatch. Nothing. Beneath the foundation but collapsed dirt and blackened stone. Daniel sold the land a month later. He moved back to Pittsburgh. Changed his phone number, and tried to rebuild his life. For a while, it seemed like the nightmare had ended. But 6 months later, on a warm July evening, Daniel received a package with no return address. Inside was an old cassette recorder. Its plastic casing was melted, on one side, as if it had survived a fire. There was a strip of tape inside labeled with one word. Blackwood. Daniel wanted to throw it away. Instead, he pressed play. For 10 seconds, there was only static. Then Thomas Reed's voice whispered, "You closed the door. Thank you." Daniel exhaled for the first time in months. Then another voice followed. A voice he did not recognize. A woman's voice. Soft. Close. Almost smiling. "But you did not lock it." The recorder clicked off. That night, every light in Daniel's apartment flickered at exactly 2:17 in the morning. His phone, which had been disconnected from service, lit up on the nightstand. Unknown number. Daniel stared at it until the ringing stopped. A voicemail appeared. He did not play it. He did not have to, because from somewhere inside the walls of his apartment, a voice began whispering his name. Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. And this time, it sounded exactly like him.